Good evening and welcome to the Idea Box Show, episode number 41 for Friday, September 25th, 2016. I'm your host, Mary Morgan Ryan. I'm a pre-K to 5 school librarian in the western suburbs of Chicago. And today I'm here with a rock star school librarian. Hi, Bruce. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Mary. How are you? Great to be here.
So tell us where you're from and a little bit about your school.
Yep, I am a middle school librarian. I teach in 2 buildings in Pennsauken, New Jersey, which is a suburb of Philadelphia. So we're right across the bridge in New Jersey. And I teach at Pennsauken Intermediate School, which is a 5-6 school, and Howard Pfeiffer Middle School, which is a 7-8 school.
Great, great. And we're so glad everyone's here with us today on the Idea Box Show, which is a series of casual conversations with school librarians of all kinds, sharing ideas and expanding our personal learning networks. We explore the work that school librarians are doing every day, from teaching to technology and collection development to collaboration. So the idea that we are exploring today with Bruce is keeping the school library relevant in today's changing times and with Common Core, different kinds of testing going on, and new methods of evaluating teachers, all of this swirl in education going on. How are we keeping the school library effective and relevant in education? So, Bruce, how did you get started thinking about this topic?
Well, actually, I'm the president-elect and conference chair for the New Jersey Association of School Librarians. And in 2012, I won a scholarship from NJASL called the Vili Gandhi Scholarship Award, which allowed me to attend the AECT convention in, I believe it was in Jacksonville that year.
What is AECT?
AECT is the Association for Educational Communications and Technology. It's an international organization, mostly university folks. But I really liked them. I mean, they were great people, and by winning the scholarship, I got to go down to the conference and hang out.
Where ISTE is more, say, maybe practical classroom-based technology stuff, I'm hearing you say that AECT might be more academic.
It is. They focus more on publishing probably than anything else.
Okay.
Publishing is extremely important to them because they're all university folks who need to get published.
Okay. So you went to the conference.
So I went to the conference and I met lots of instructional designers, lots of folks who work at the graduate, and doctoral levels, and even in the undergrad level. And I found something that disturbed me. This was 3 years ago, and that's when I started really thinking about it. And actually, this year, it's really taken root more than any other time. But what I saw was that instructional designers were designing these fantastic technological tools and technological, digitalized lessons for their future librarians to bring to their districts. And I was finding, I came back from this conference thinking, wow, I'm going to be digitalized. I'm going to be the greatest techno guy in the world. And my district simply doesn't have the technology to be able to execute that type of thing. Now, that's not because Pennsauken's a bad place. We just don't have the technology right now. And I think a lot of people also don't have the technology right now. So, and I think it's a socioeconomic issue. And I think it's a lot of other, there's a lot of other factors. But I found myself very frustrated because I wanted to kind of deliver all this great stuff that these professors were telling me that I should be doing, and in fact was not able to do that.
So
and
was it something along the lines, kind of ringing a bell in my head, like an iTunes U course kind of a thing? Are you talking about maybe a tool where you would be able to deliver content digitally to your students?
Well, actually, really just the idea of, I'll give you a perfect example.
Yeah.
Here's kind of what I mean. Every person that I talked to assumed that schools either had a BYOD policy or had already executed their BYOD policy. So a lot of these professors were operating under the assumption that every school librarian who enters into a public school or private school is going to have a BYOD policy and everybody's going to have a device.
Okay,
that's what I mean. And that simply isn't true, right?
Oh, for sure. So they're just saying, well, have your student get out their device and...
Right, or at least we'll use the smart board.
Okay.
Or the Prometheus board. Well, what if you don't have one of those either?
All
You know,
right.
what if you have, chalk and a blackboard?
Great.
And you're not at, in Jersey, we would say not at like the petty school, at Phillips Exeter. It's not all
As
schools are
most
like
of
that.
us
Yeah,
are
most
not.
of us are humble surroundings with humble technology.
All right. So you
So
find yourself back home.
exactly, I find myself back home, and then starting last year and the year before, but especially last year in New Jersey, I find myself getting the library closed because of testing. Well, now even if I had the technology, I can't deliver it in my class in the library because the library is closed. So then this year, my district hired a technology coach. They didn't hire another librarian so that I would have, somebody in each building. They hired a technology coach instead. So all of this tells me one thing, that there's still one thing, and don't get me wrong, I love technology. I was webmaster of NJASL. I like the stuff. I use it all the time. However,
Oh, people should know that pre-show and yesterday, both Bruce and I discovered that each other are really tenacious technology people. We really
exactly.
ironed out some tech problems. So yeah, I can back that up. You're a tech guy.
Thank you. However, what I'm finding is that we librarians are still good at one thing that nobody else is good at, and that's managing books in a library, managing a print collection, or managing a collection, period, whether it's print, digital, or both. And it's amazing because I heard on the radio this morning in the Philadelphia area, you have a local news radio station called KYW, and KYW said this morning that digital sales are down for the first time in several years now, and that print sales are steady.
Interesting.
Yeah,
That's
and
very interesting.
I was fascinated by that, especially since I knew we would be talking about this tonight. I was like, it was almost like, serendipitous that I heard this. There, you see, I'm right.
The
So
radio
my,
said so.
so my focus, frankly, has not been because about 2, 3 years ago, I started buying ebooks and I stopped because I simply have a limited budget and I don't have the budget to buy ebooks and regular books. And frankly, what I was finding is that my students, because a lot of them didn't have a device, my students would say, "Do you have the Hunger Games?" Well, gosh, I don't have a copy on the shelf, but I have a digital copy. Oh, all right. Well, I'll just put it on hold.
I have the exact same experience. Exact. I offer the ebook and nah, no thanks. I'm going to find something else.
Maybe the high schoolers, maybe they use the digital more, but my students aren't. They're just not. So I'm finding that I best serve my community now, and I best serve my two schools when I have the best selection of books on the shelf, not necessarily the best selection of technology to choose from. Because my district, frankly, is making it clear that they're hired that they want another person who's more curriculum based to do the technology with the teachers. I saw that as a function of my job was to collaborate with teachers on technology. But what I was finding is that either they didn't know the technology and they didn't have anybody to train them, and I would train them, but they didn't want to take the time, or frankly, I didn't have the time to work with them because I was so busy running two buildings with no assistants. So, oh yeah, I didn't mention that. Well, because you know what, Mary, we're all dealing with it right now. Every person who's watching this is probably a librarian, and they're probably doing what you're doing right now. They're nodding their
Nodding
head and they're
along.
saying, "Yep, I sure know about that. Two buildings? Are you kidding? I'm in four buildings. And I haven't had assistants for 5 years. Believe me, we're all. My students are coming from elementary schools where they have no librarians at the elementary schools. So I'm the first, and I was introducing myself today to new fifth graders, and the first thing as I say is I am an actual librarian, and I use those words. I am an actual librarian. I have a master's degree in library science, and I belong to the state association, and I'm an actual, like I really have a degree in this and everything, because they're not used to that.
They aren't, right. They're coming to you from a situation where not having
Right.
been with somebody in elementary
They have
school.
parents, and the parents are very nice and they're very helpful.
Right.
So,
Well, now, okay, so I'm just going to interject here on the subject of having an aide or an assistant. I am fortunate, and I do have one. I have a
you rock.
full-time. I have a full-time assistant, And I always, when I am talking to my administration or when I'm talking to my PTO, I always make sure to say at the beginning of whatever I'm about to say, nothing that I'm about to share with you would be possible and without the woman sitting right over there. I always make it a point to say the things, the creative things, the teaching, the things that I am able to do are because there is a full-time person who is able to manage the circulation and other things that are going on in the library. Both jobs are critical, as we all know. But it's just a little piece of advocacy that I do every time I'm able. And so just if you are a person listening who does have an aide, that's always a good thing to say.
Oh, I can't agree with you more. And I always supported the idea, but it's things happen,
Oh,
and there's nothing you
every
can
school
do. Yeah.
district is different, absolutely. But for those of us who do have aides, I think it behooves us to remind the decision makers of their impact, their positive impact.
Some of the problem, Mary, is that, and I don't want to talk about this the whole time, but some of the problem is that a lot of us are so kind of hardworking and competent that we'll make it work, even though, because we'll just spend more time, we'll devote more hours, we'll do more preparation, because that's the kind of people we are, because we went into this for that purpose,
Yes.
to bring light to the kids, to the kids' minds, and we're not going to let cuts in a budget stop that. And
Oh,
that's
I agree.
it's almost a detriment, but hey, look, it's it's an occupational hazard. We care, you know.
All right. So tell us then how you're getting along with these. So you have your budget and you're focusing on print. You're not focusing on ebooks
Correct.
anymore. Have you seen any changes in circulation? Have you seen any changes in student use?
Yes. First of all, I can tell you that my circulations are up, and I've noticed that. And frankly, as I focused more on just getting the kids in for circulation and less on teaching them lessons, which I love to do, by the way. I mean, I was an English teacher at the high school level for 10 years before I taught middle school library, and I love to teach. I mean, frankly, at the middle school, they asked me to teach a lot of English, because I like it. Like the teachers will say, "Hey, could you do me a quick lesson on figurative language? I know you're not supposed to, but gosh, I love that lesson that you do." But I'm finding that since we have a technology coach now in the two buildings who can probably cover that, I'm actually going to work more with the technology coach and not with the teachers, and I'm going to spend more of my time focusing on the collection and getting the students in every couple weeks for books, which I think is more important. And I've already met with the technology coach, and I've already kind of dropped a couple programs that are, I said, hey, do you use VoiceThread? Hey, do you use Edmodo? Hey, do you use Glogster? Oh, they're great. Yeah, yeah. You know what? Can you show me? So, we'll hook up, and I'm hoping to have a similar effect with my teachers through the technology coach instead of directly,
That
which
sounds
is
like a
fine.
great plan. Right.
Yeah, I mean, so we're all on the same team, and I don't care who actually, kind of does the actual collaboration. I just want everybody to not know that I'm part of the team, but everybody to feel that I am part of the team.
Okay, so let me play devil's advocate here. You're
Yep.
telling me that in order to keep the school library relevant today, I need to focus on my print collection.
Yep.
Okay, so what do you say to the people who say print is dead, paper's dead? I've heard it so many times. How do you respond?
Here's what I say. Ask the students. Don't ask the researchers. Don't ask the people who have a vested interest because they're in the publishing business and they're looking to expand their sales. Ask the actual users of media. Which do they prefer? And again, I'm not talking about a 12th grader who lives with his or her cell phone, and does everything with it. I'm talking about our kids. I don't know about the high schoolers right now. I haven't been at the high school for a little while. I'm talking K to 8. And you ask them, which would they rather have if they're going to cuddle up at night and they're going to read? Which would they rather read on? A tablet or a book? And I can tell you, I think most of them will tell you a book. And it's the more likely it is that their parents read, the more likely that they'll choose a book.
For sure. And I'm
And
also, as you're saying that, I'm also thinking about, my kiddos. They are not going to want to read something like Tana Hoban's Colors Everywhere on a digital format. They want to hold it. They want to turn the pages and look at it. A picture book.
exactly. They don't run out of power. They don't break when you drop them. They only get that little bend on the corner, that little bend that we love so much, that one right there. They last a long time.
Seems like
You
you're
can carry
leading,
them anywhere. There's no restrictions on an airplane.
seems like you're leading me down a scary path, though, Bruce. In terms of saying, focus on your print collection, because it seems as though that may not be enough to, oh goodness, stand up against somebody who's looking down budget line items and saying, we don't really need somebody shelving books. We need our technology coach because technology is it.
See, but here's the deal.
Yeah.
I'm the only guy who can shelve books. So I'm the only guy in 2 buildings who actually knows how that library is supposed to be organized. A technology coach has no idea how to run a library. She only knows how to run technology.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the guy who runs the library. And I can tell you, ask the kid, does he learn more when he's reading from a book with a static page and no distractions whatsoever, or from a tablet or a device where he can get a dictionary definition, he can check Wikipedia, he can text his friend, he can listen to music, all those things while he's reading? Which do you think he's actually absorbing more from? And I can tell you there are studies that will support my my theory, that were my assertion that that print is not dead. I'm not saying, Mary, don't get me wrong, I am not saying that there's no place for ebooks. I have ebooks. I have Follett Destiny, like a lot of other folks. I have ebooks on there. I have Mac and Via. I have some ebooks on there. I know how to manage them. They don't get used. It was a waste of money to buy ebooks. And the truth is, and I'll tell you, Mary, any one of us can go to Overdrive at our local library and get any book anyway. What do I need my school library to do that for, when my public library is providing that service already? And it's no harder. It's no harder to do it from Overdrive than it is. You're just reading on a device.
Right. Right.
It's an extra step. So and these kids, they know how to do that. That's downloading something is nothing for them.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a really good answer to that question. I was wondering if it might be time for me to screen share a couple things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like you just mentioned that you have some articles and evidence, about ebooks and about print. And while I'm dialing that up, I just want to let everyone know we've moved to a new online home over the summer. If you go to www.ideaboxshow.com, you will find all of our episodes and links to get episodes on iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. And we appreciate your support. One of the ways you can continue to support us is by rating us on iTunes. So if you go to www.ideaboxshow.com and click on the iTunes link, then you will be able to rate us, which we really appreciate.
I have to think the ratings will go sky high after this show. So.
Oh, well, of course. Okay, so let's look at this article, right? For a minute.
Okay. See, now this is exactly what I'm talking about, right? Why reading paper books is better for your mind. Can I tell a little story while we're looking at this article real fast?
Yeah.
I don't know if I mentioned this in the document that we did, but about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. Oh, Ulysses! I love Ulysses. I took a class on that in college. Anyway, about 3 years ago, we had at our annual conference, our keynote speaker was Ken Jennings from Jeopardy fame. And he was a pretty interesting guy. He's a pretty straight-laced fella. He really was nice. But he spoke for a while. And one thing he said that really stuck with me to this day is this idea that he fears that today's students are downloading their intelligence to their devices, and that they're not really using their brains anymore to get information. They're simply pushing buttons and getting information that way. That they're not, that the device, although it's convenient for a lot of things, is actually reducing the amount of critical thinking that everyone is doing, not just students, but especially students. And frankly, I agree. Because I know that I read differently on a device than I do with a book. I just do. I have a different approach. I have different expectations. I don't have the expectation of not being interrupted. In fact, I do have the expectation of being interrupted. So, because I'm online, I expect to be interrupted. That's the nature of the beast. But books don't do that.
It's really interesting. I was talking to some colleagues about close reading and reading in general, and all three of us said when we really, as adults, when we really want to concentrate on something and we really want to understand it, we'll print it out, because we want that paper in front of us, which is exactly what you were just saying. And then I was looking at this last paragraph of this article. Much of what students liked about reading print involved their minds. They said it's easier to focus, my spatial memory works best, and I feel like the content sticks in my head more easily when they were reading print. So
and I agree. And it works that way for me, and I think it works that way for a lot of our students. And I think moving text is very distracting for people in general, especially young people. There's another point that I want to make too, which is young people have a different relationship with technology than we do. That as older users, technology is all encompassing for them. So when they get involved in an activity like this, they're not fully engaged, because to them this is just another computer activity. And most of the computer activities, or many of the computer activities they do, are games. So I believe that to a lot of people, when they read on a device, they read it as if they're playing a game, and they don't fully engage because of that.
That can be right. That's what their brain says we're doing now.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And we never had that. When I started using computers, there were no computer games.
Right.
We had there was this really corny Star Trek game back in like the late 70s, and there was Asteroids, and that was about it. Remember, when we were growing up, Pong was awesome. So
we're dating ourselves, Bruce.
Well, okay. Here, let me take another sip of my tab. Hold it.
So here is a second article, and these article links are in the show notes if anybody is listening and not watching. So this article is from Huffington Post. It's called "Sorry eBooks, These 9 Studies Show Why Print is Better."
And see, younger people are more likely to believe that there's useful information that's only available offline, because they understand that when it's for free, that you get what you pay for.
Really?
Yes, because I teach them that actually, but I think they innately understand. I think our students innately understand that you get what you pay for, because that's a truism in American society. And I think that the problem is that they're willing to accept faulty information in a way that we're not. Like, it doesn't bother them all that much if Wikipedia is only 80% accurate. They're okay with that. 80% is good enough. For us, it's not.
Right.
But for them, it's okay. So, it's not such a big deal for them. But we know that that's not good enough. So we have to, kind of get them to take a different approach to reading. That read to engage, not just to scan. which is a lot of times what online reading is. Here you go.
Yes.
Students don't connect emotionally with on-screen texts.
I was just looking at that and thinking about a piece that I heard on National Public Radio several years ago about um, they did I don't know, it wasn't an EKG, but some sort of brain scan, watching your brain activity as you're reading. And what they discovered was that what your brain was doing was very similar to what it would be doing if you were really in that story. So if the story, had a smell, then the part of your brain that works on smell was active while you were reading that part. And I was thinking of that story while I was reading this header in the article from you. Students don't connect emotionally with on-screen texts. Yeah, that's really interesting.
And they don't. It's again,
Yeah.
it's just more computer stuff for them. It's
Okay,
not
what?
separate. Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
What's this one? This is a link to a database.
Yeah, it's EBSCO. I wanted to get something a little more scholarly because I didn't want you guys to think that the Huffington Post was the only place who was talking about this. But yeah, this is something a little more scholarly, and what it does is it talks about reading behavior, and it basically presents some pros and some cons to reading digitally and reading print. But the conclusion that it comes to, which I think is the conclusion that we all need to come to, is that they're both important. That
Okay.
that digital reading is valuable in some ways, and I believe that it is, and that print reading is, has greater value in some areas, and I believe that as well.
All right. Okay, so we have several articles in the show notes if anybody's wanting to learn more about this topic. Um, there's a Washington Post article, Huffington Post article, and then, like you said, this more scholarly piece. And it looks like there's also a piece of testimony.
Yeah, this is this is something that I ask everybody to do, and we were just talking about this earlier, Mary. We were talking about advocating, advocacy.
Mm-hmm.
Several years ago, I started to realize that there was no in-service in my school district that was helpful to me, that I was receiving no professional development whatsoever that was helpful. Now, that's not my district's fault. There's only 2 librarians in my district. So, how much is there going to be? They're not going to bring in special speakers just for the librarians, and they're not going to cater, the lessons to just the librarians, because it's only me and the high school librarian. So I realized that I needed to get that professional development outside of my district, and I got a lot more involved in the New Jersey Association of School Librarians. I became the webmaster because I thought that would be cool, and then I forced me to learn how to be a webmaster, which was kind of neat. And then I was elected to the leadership track a couple years ago, and now I'm, as you know, conference chair and president-elect. And one of the advantages of being a leader in an organization like that is that you can do cool stuff like testify to the State Board of Education. So we have a lobbyist. Her name is Peggy Lawler, and she's really awesome. And she lets us know when the State Board of Education is having open hearings where they allow testimony. And you can sign up. There's 20 slots, and I signed up for a slot, and I gave it my best shot. And I think I got through to them because the president of the board in New Jersey and the chief academic officer in the state of New Jersey are now coming to my conference.
Congratulations.
So, and I don't think they would have come unless I had testified. So there you go. I mean, it really does something. They actually do listen. They may not be able to solve your problem. I mean, they may not be able to say, oh, sure, we'll get you more funding. But they do have, they will listen, and they do have a sympathetic ear. And each of the board members who was present at that meeting at some point after the meeting, after the testimonies, came down and said to me, I support, I agree with you. I don't know what I can do about it, but I agree with you, and I'm going to try to come to your conference. And then 2 days later, we got a letter that they were coming. So, and what does that mean? Well, that simply means that we get to show off a little more what we're doing. We get to show how much value we have. We get to show how important we are to our students and how important we are to our buildings. And that gives us another, another coin in the box, that we can shake around when when they start cutting us again.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, so I basically I basically advocated for school librarianship in New Jersey. That we should have we should strengthen the law to require a school library media specialist in every building, not just in every district, which is the way it stands now. But I also talked about this idea of reading versus digital, and I saw a lot of nods from the Board of Education members when I spoke about that. And I basically said that, technology is a two-edged sword. It's great in some ways, but it doesn't accomplish everything. And that, in fact, it really can be a sort of Damocles hanging over our head and not really, like distracting us more than helping us. And I argued this idea that let's not forget print.
Right.
And I made it clear I'm not a Luddite. I just don't want to forget print. I think people still like books. I'm sorry.
No. I was going to say that for those of us who might be able to also make sort of a public comment in our states, a link to Bruce's testimony is in the show notes. So if you want to know, what he said and how he approached it, you can definitely read what he had to say and see how that might work for you, what spin you could put on it. So,
I will say this, I did work, if you're going to present to the State Board of Education, I feel like you really need to be, like I really, really worked hard to try to be as eloquent as possible.
Absolutely.
This is your one shot. I mean, they're never going to talk to you again. This is the one interface that you have with them. You always want to show your best face.
Good advice. Practice, practice, practice.
Yes.
So you and I talked pre-show. You have some suggestions for people who would like to do what you're doing, focus more on their print collection. But as with all of us, our budgets are limited, and a lot of us, our budgets are shrinking every year. So what creative ideas have you come up with for building a print collection in these tough times?
Okay. We've done a few things, actually. First of all, I've continued to do Scholastic book fairs. And instead of taking, what I used to do is with my Scholastic book fair, I would take cash as a profit, and then I would go to like a Follett or a Mackin and buy any book I wanted and not just Scholastic books. What I realized is that doesn't achieve my goal, because I need a lot of books. I want a lot of books on the shelf, and I want a lot of high popularity, high-low type books on my shelf, because frankly, that's where my kids are. So I need a lot of high-low stuff. So now I take all Scholastic dollars from every fair, and I get about $3,000 worth of books, sometimes more, from a Scholastic book fair.
More bang for your buck. You're getting
a lot more bang for my buck now.
On the shelves.
Obviously, I'm not going to be able to get the variety that I would get from a large distributor, a Baker and Taylor or a Mackin or a Follett, but I'm getting a lot of copies in the library. And frankly, it doesn't make sense to buy Diary of a Wimpy Kid or Dork Diaries from Follett. It makes sense to buy them from Scholastic. I mean, they make them, they publish them. So what I've done is, I focused a little more on my Scholastic books, and my kids love them. They don't care, Scholastic books are as good as any other book, and I look at, like you said, I just get more bang for the buck.
Okay.
Another thing is I've partnered with the local library in the past, our Pennsauken Public Library. And, sometimes they will have books that they're reading, and they don't know what to do with them, or they might say, yeah, I have, I wasn't going to weed, but you know what? Now that you mention it, I will weed. And you know what? See me next month, and I'll have some titles for you. You never know. If you don't ask, or if there's a county library system or a state library system, contact them. Hey, I'm Bruce DuBoff from Pennsauken Intermediate School. I'm running short of books, and my budget's been cut. Do you have anything for me? And they might say no. but they might say yes.
You never know.
Right. And
Correct.
then another thing is, a lot of parents now have a lot of books that they just don't use anymore. And you know what? How about all those books that get purchased at the Scholastic Book Fair or at Barnes and Noble or at Barnes and Noble book fairs, which we also hold? We hold a Barnes and Noble book fair, and we combine gift wrapping with it. So we have the honor students, the Junior Honor Society, the National Junior Honor Society, go in and wrap boxes, wrap packages for Barnes and Noble for tips, and the tips go to a gift certificate that I use to buy books. And like I say, how about all those books that they buy at Barnes and Noble or at Scholastic? They read them, and then they sit on the shelf. And then 2 years later, a ninth grader doesn't want to read Dork Diaries anymore. But what's she going to do with that book? Well, guess what? She can donate it right back to the library. And I put a nice plate in it that says this book generously donated by such and such, and they think that's awesome. They're not doing anything with the book. I mean, it's just going to sit there. They might just put it in a box and put it away. Why not get use out of it?
Absolutely.
And like I say, you don't know unless you ask.
And I
and
have
if
also
they say no, then they say no.
Yeah. I've also found, and I think you have too, that if I'm willing to sit with a vendor for a few minutes and talk about what they have to offer, that also might be a source of a few
They always throw you a few books.
Yeah. Right.
They will always throw you a few books. Yeah. And actually, I'm never embarrassed or ashamed to ask for more. So whatever they give me, I'll always say, listen, do you have anything else? In a nice way, not like I'm a greedy slob, but my kids could really, you have any extra copies of the Wimpy Kid book? You got an I Spy book. You'd be surprised at what you get just by asking. I got an I Spy book autographed by Walter Wick recently. Walter Wick, right? He's the I Spy guy, right?
Yeah.
Just because I asked for it. I saw it like a guy had a book with him, and I was like, oh, what is that? He's like, oh, it's an I Spy book. We got it autographed. It's for such and such. I said, oh, could I have it? and and he's like, well, will you give me an order? I'm like, well, I'll think about it. He's like, well, okay, but hey, look, like I say, you never know unless you ask.
That's
so
true.
Seek out the community. Also, are there other organizations out there who would like to help you? Are there charitable organizations out there who do this kind of thing? Who provide books? A lot of times, Mary, I'll be honest with you, I've written a couple of grants in my life. It's a long, difficult process, especially if you're alone, and you just have nobody else. There's a lot of data that you need, and there's a lot of writing, and there's a lot, and then a lot of times you don't get it, and it's disheartening.
Yes.
So grants really are, grants are great if you have staff, I believe. If you have staff, grants are awesome because you can actually have your assistant, look up the community data, what the population is and how many people are getting free or reduced lunches and, and all these kinds of issues. But I'll tell you, if you don't have that, those grant writing's hard. And it's just time consuming. So I find just asking people, is more effective. And like I say, it's a snowball effect. If you ask one parent and she unloads a box of books, she might tell another parent, hey, listen, DuBoff down at the intermediate school is taking all my old books. You can get rid of that box in your, attic too. Oh, really? And then the next thing you know, I got lots of books.
Right.
And guess what? If I don't use those books and if I don't find them useful, I can turn around, give them to the teachers, and they can build their classroom libraries with it. I
was just going to ask you, are you like upfront with them and saying, don't expect to see every one of these on the shelf? Somebody, we had our back to school night last Monday, just a few days ago. And a fifth grade parent, who's new to the building and, new to me, said to me, do you accept donations? And I said, yes. And she said, well, what are the qualifications? And I said, I have to like the book. And she said, well, it has to be in good shape, right? I don't care about the shape. I said, my kids don't care about the shape. It just has to be a book that we would use in this library. That's it. Like a book that I would normally put on the shelf or that I wouldn't have any objections to putting on the shelf. Right.
So for example, you want to give me, the fourth book in the Twilight series. I don't know if I want that for my fifth graders, but eighth grade, no problem. you know, on the same note, I don't know if I need Magic Tree House for my middle school, but guess what? I have a lot of fifth graders who still read Magic Tree House. So I don't care if they're beat up. The parents think it's about the condition of the book. And I tell them, I could care less about the condition of the book. The best books in this library are beat to hell.
Right.
They are just, we have beaten the crap out of them. The pages are falling out, the corners are bent, the laminate is falling off. All that stuff. That's, a good book. A kid just came in the library the other day and said, "Oh, look, Mr. DuBoff, this book is all broken." I said, "I know, it's a good one."
I have some very pristine.
She got it. She said, "Yeah, I get it."
I also have some pristine books that are in as good a shape as the day I bought them because, they are not so well loved.
No,
those are great suggestions, Bruce. Those are great suggestions for, focusing our attention on matching kids with the right book in our print collection and getting back to the basics of what a school library is all about, and some great ideas for, scrounging around and finding good ways to build our collection.
And by the way, people like Orca, are you familiar with them?
Yes.
If you write to them and ask them, they will give you stuff. A lot of publishers will. A lot of publishers will ignore you. Scholastic is another publisher. I am now on there, and you tell every single person who's listening to this podcast to do this right now.
Okay.
Okay? You call Scholastic or you write to Scholastic, and you tell them that you review books and that you would like, if at all possible, to be put on their list for galley copies and preview copies. I get 2 or 3 huge boxes a year of galley copies and preview copies because I review once in a while. And all you have to do is ask them.
I don't have to be a published reviewer?
Nope. You do not have to do anything. You just ask them. And they will, and if they put you on the list, which I hope they will, all of a sudden you'll just get these boxes of free books every once in a while. And, they'll be, this one will be coming out in July, and this will be coming out in August, and, and they'll all have the dates. And I don't put any of them out before I'm supposed to, because that's courteous to the publisher. But I have to tell you, I read The Hunger Games and Catching Fire 3 months before they came out.
Aha.
I was dying when Mockingjay was. I was dying a whole year. I had to wait for Mockingjay.
I know, all of us were in that boat. That's for sure.
You'd never think that. Yeah, like I say, I get these huge boxes of books, and then a lot of those books that I see that I get as free copies, 2 months later, I'm buying a copy from the book fair anyway. So they've achieved their goal.
Right.
By sending me 1 copy of Missile Mouse, I'm going to end up buying 2 more copies of Missile Mouse, which is a graphic, if you might know it, yeah.
No, I don't.
But you get the idea. No, it's,
right.
You buy a bone, and you get another bone, whatever,
Yeah, they're
an amulet. My kids love the amulet books,
Oh,
but
my goodness, yes.
I had the 6th amulet book before anybody because I got a preview copy. My kids were like drooling over it, and it wasn't even colored fully. It had some black and white in it. They didn't care.
No, they don't care. That's great.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. But just one more thing. Everybody should do that.
That's a great idea. Scholastic, call them, or write them, or send smoke signals, or something. Okay, so that's going to wrap up our discussion of your idea, which is a great one, and I think it'll all give us pause to think really about the purpose of our program and our role in the school. And so now we're going to move on to shout outs. I want to give a shout out to a friend of yours, Kathleen Galarza. I've been dark on Twitter for a while, just because I've had some things, going on at home and the start of the school year. And Kathleen tweeted me the other day. She's a podcast guest, and we talked about her anime club, and she tweeted me something about the anime club. And I just have to say, Kathleen, that really helped me realize that I need to get back on Twitter. I have a lot of friends on Twitter that I've been ignoring and not tending to those friendships. And so I need to get back onto Twitter. So Hi, Kathleen, and thank you. She tweeted me, duh, should have shared this with Mary. So that was great. How about you, Bruce? Do you have anybody you want to shout
Oh,
out to?
and ditto on Twitter, by the way. I've been a little dark on Twitter too lately, but I'm getting back because the conference is coming up. I have to give a shout out to my conference committee, and especially to Leslie Blatt, who's just been doing tremendous work. To run a conference, to run a state conference, is a tremendous undertaking. It involves just a lot of coordination and a lot of communication and a lot of collaboration. And I have just the greatest committee in the world. I mean, they have been awesome. They have made my job a whole lot easier, and they've enabled me to do what I do best, which is smile and take credit for everybody else's work. So they're really good at doing the work that I can take credit for. So thank you. Oh, and also one more to Joyce Valenza at Rutgers, because she's doing us a favor by speaking at our conference this year, and she works with us every year. So, hey, Joyce, and I hope I'll see your students soon.
Oh,
Actually,
wonderful. Great. That's going to be, it sounds like a great conference. I look forward to the tweets.
It is November 15th to 17th, Ocean Place Resort, Long Branch, New Jersey. njasl.org, njasl.org/fallconf, FALLCONF. Be there or be square. It'll be the best conference in the universe.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. Prove that it's not. Go ahead.
All right. So the last thing I just want to do is, if you have a news item or a tip, or you want to share what you're reading, that would be great. I wanted to let people know about a community online in the EdWeb, at edweb.net. I don't know. It's free to join, edweb.net. And once you're there, you can become a member of a lot of different communities and get free professional development. And so my colleague Jill Berry here in my district let me know that there is a digital citizenship community in EdWeb. And we are in the process of sort of revamping our digital citizenship resources. We try in our district to all share what we're using to teach those lessons, and we're reworking, coming up with what we think are really up-to-date resources. And Jill mentioned that the edweb.net community was a good source of information for professional development. So I joined it, and if you are one of those librarians out there who is tasked with teaching digital citizenship, you might join it too.
EdWeb, cool. I'm actually presenting on digital citizenship at AECT in November. So that'll be excellent. So thank you very much.
Of course.
Let me mention, by the way, just briefly, I think we might have met through TL Chat. So if you're not attending TL Chat, you absolutely should. I don't do it every month, but it's a great, it's a great monthly show. Also, if you haven't read S.A. Bodine yet, have you read S.A. Bodine?
No.
Yeah, this is S.A. Bodine. Well, this isn't her. I mean, I imagine she's a little older, but S.A. Bodine wrote this book called The Raft, which is kind of like other stories that I've read about a girl who gets stranded. It's kind of like Hatchet for a girl, except it's in the ocean instead of in the Canadian wilderness. It's very good, and my kids really enjoy it. And then this book especially, which is actually two books. This is called The Compound.
Yeah.
And this is it's creepy and really good, actually. And if you haven't read it, and there is a sequel called Fallout, which is all right. It's not bad. I mean, it's you want to see what happens. I mean, just so you read it for that reason. But The Compound is particularly good, and it's about this super rich guy who is afraid that there's going to be a nuclear war, so he builds this immense underground system. And in fact, the war comes, and the whole family can't make it. So a couple of the family is left outside. Years go by, things get kind of creepy, and then suddenly there's questions about what really did or didn't happen. It's a very tense, exciting, creepy book, and there is a creep element to it that like a lot of the teachers the teachers in my school are split on it, because I've told everybody to read it, and they all said the same thing about the one part, and you probably know what I'm talking about, the creepy part, and it's real creepy. Yeah, but but you should read
Good.
it because it's really good. Yeah.
I'm on the good side. Yeah.
So yeah, so check it out. And then the only other thing I just read recently is I'm into this series. The new James Dashner series, the first and second books. So this is the Eye of Minds and the Rule of Thoughts. This is, I believe it's called the Immortality Doctrine. And it's about this kid named Michael who, kind of is involved in this virtual reality thing. And there's a criminal and, the good guys, bad guys. And it has a great, by the way, very good ending. Surprising for Dashner, who isn't really always about a good ending. So read the Death Cure, you'll know what I mean. But this does have a good ending. So
Fabulous.
check it out.
Those are great recommendations. And I love The Compound. It's totally creepy though, you're right.
Yes,
So
totally, but in a cool way.
That's going to close the book on this episode of the Idea Box Show.
Oh my God, that was fast?
I know. Time flies when you're having fun with a friend. Thanks, Bruce, for joining us. Where can people find you online?
They can find me at bruceduboff@gmail.com. They can find me at njasl.org. They can find me at bduboff@pensauken.net. They can find me at pensauken.net/PIM, pensauken.net/PMS, on Twitter at BRDBRUTUS or at Bruce Duboff, and hashtag NJSL15 and
Awesome.
at NJASL.
Great.
Find me all those places, or just search me on Google, Bruce Duboff. You'll find me. There aren't that many Bruce Duboffs. We were librarians, fortunately.
And you can find me on Twitter at @mmorganryan, and be sure to visit www.ideaboxshow.com to find all our episodes and the links to subscribe on iTunes and Stitcher and SoundCloud. Spread the word, and thanks for joining us to learn new ideas. All right. Thanks, everybody.